Welcome back, everyone, to Red Spotlight. I'm your host, Alexis Soto, joined by Alexis Moreno and David Francisco. Another installment here of Red Spotlight Entertainment, the show that brings you all of the latest stories coming out of the world of movies and, of course, sometimes even television. This week we have a whole bunch of that. Getting into the latest of Andor and House of the Dragon, which, spoiler alert, I think it can be objectively stated, both had series highlights. On top of the Marvel Studios special presentation, Werewolf by Night, could also be called a Halloween special, a special by any other name, of course. And yeah, that's today's show here on Red Spotlight number 419. So we're in October. We're getting around to be the heart of the spooky season here. How are you guys, doing? Are you feeling the season this year? How are you? Let's get a bit deeper right now. Because I've had a particularly long week. If I'm going to be completely honest with you, I'm kind of going through withdrawals because I've kind of miss the people I was with. And so even though...
Are you not where you were at?
No, I ended actually last week. The teacher came back.
Oh my god.
And so there was a whirlwind of 48 hours where she came back. I met with her, gave her a complete crash course in what she missed. And yeah, it's interesting. And, you gotta keep in mind with me, sometimes I have the same affect on my face where it's and you can tell when I'm angry and things. And, sometimes I forget to smile and be all that, lovey-dovey and nice to, to kids who might need it. And there were sometimes some of them that would talk to me and I'm like, why? We're trying to get to something right now. Do not interrupt me. But evidently they were rather, struck by the fact that I left them. And somebody else took over. But I did see them a lot this week because I had other jobs in the same school, literally, with other classrooms. And it is strange to be there but not be there. And it is made this week just be so much longer. And I'm trying to get used to a different rhythm. And some good, some not so good. So I've been more tired and just... Yeah, it's weird because in the thick of it, I was just so exhausted and didn't have really much energy. And technically, I have more energy now, but for what? So it's okay, there's that. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. But the good news is I am feeling the spooky season this year. We've had a string of amazing horror-related content when it comes to Pearl, Barbarian, and of course, Smile, which if you didn't hear... had the second best second weekend hold in horror movie history behind Get Out.
Nice. Well deserved, I think.
Well deserved, impressive stats, and go back and listen to the review that Alexis and I had, which was hilarious, if not also scary, because it's so...
I was terrified.
It is terrifying. You know what's the funny thing about it? It's in the moment, while I'm reliving the film, as I'm communicating what I thought of the film, in that moment, I was getting myself scared again.
Yeah.
But then also listening to it, I was getting myself scared again. It even got to a point, because sometimes I go on a walk at night. I got to a point where
why would you do that?
I was listening to it at night while I was walking. And then I turned a corner and I kind of scared myself because I saw a figure. And it's Halloween, people decorate their outside yards. And it was a freaking skeleton sitting on a bench. It's just great. Because that happened.
I told my coworker about it because her favorite type of movies are scary movies. And I was like, you need to go watch this one. It's... And she's not a person that goes to the movies a lot or watches a lot of movies. But I told her about this one and I was like, you need to go see it. It was really good, blah, blah, blah. And I told her, I think it's, really scary. For me, the scariest movie I've ever seen is Hereditary. And I told her, that's, up there with that movie. And she's like, oh my god, okay. So she ended up going, and she forced her boyfriend to go with her, and he doesn't like scary movies at all. And she ended up, like, she even told me, she was like, I'm not somebody that, like, covers my face or, like, does any, like, gestures like that when watching a scary movie. I'm usually the person like, ooh, look, like, and that she had to, like, cover her eyes, like, a few times, and her boyfriend was like, no, you're gonna watch it. You're making me watch it. You're gonna watch it.
No, it was such a great experience. And I'm happy I had that. That way I don't have to force myself to go see Halloween Ends. And I'm so thankful I don't have to do that because apparently the film is trash, which we all saw coming a mile away. The reviews have been horrendous. But it doesn't matter. I think if you're a fan of like just slashers, you're just going to go, I guess. But like my area here where I live in is very like by the book. They go out to see superhero movies and scary movies, horror movies, and that's it. Mm-hmm. Everything else can just like go to hell, basically. How do I know that? Because I go every week and I see the crowds that go, or lack thereof, for a lot of films, if we're being honest with you. But if Michael Myers is playing in town, everybody goes. If Spider-Man's in town, everybody goes. Almost like it's just mandatory viewing. Even last year, I remember I wanted to go see Halloween Kills on a Friday. Peter was supposed to go with me, but then ended up canceling for unforeseen reason, which happens frequently these days. Anyway, I was there. And I don't know why I didn't think. Because last year was still a weird year. People were still slowly coming back. There was hardly ever anybody. You walk in there. The place is jam-packed. There's a line out the door to go for Halloween Kills, and I'm like, well, I'm here. I'm not going to see this, because no. It was still, October 2021, pandemic is still, it's still here, but like it's still, I guess, more so then, and I'm not thrilled about like being completely jam-packed next to somebody. It's like, no, so I'll just go see the James Bond movie, which is what I did. Which was much better than Halloween Kills. So I don't expect Halloween Ends to be any better than that. So yeah, I don't foresee that movie getting any kind of coverage on this show because I don't think any of us are really like interested in wasting our time. Like more and more these days, there are a lot of projects that you can just see coming a mile away. No. Like Pinocchio, the Disney Plus movie.
Did you see the poster?
What poster?
For the new one?
Del Toro's Pinocchio?
Uh-huh.
I didn't see a poster for that one. I don't know when it came out. If you have it, go ahead and feel free to send it to me. But the Disney Plus Pinocchio, of course, I was never going to see that. If I'm being honest with you, I think after Mulan, I'm just kind of done with those movies. And I already was on the last leg with that. Morbius was like a no. Just no. Like, there are a lot of movies that come out, it's like, yeah, that's awful. And I don't know, like, Peter is the only person I know that is remotely interested in Black Adam. And I'm like, okay, I don't care. I'll tell you this, I'm far more interested in Avatar: The Way of Water than I am about Black Adam. Which I should actually want to start off there. First of all, let me open up Alexis's very well and kind message here because she knows that I'm excited for this film. And oh my God, this is amazing.
Right?
Wow.
Wow.
Okay.
I just hearted my own thing. I didn't mean to do that.
Hey, it's an amazing wow. Yeah, this is definitely worth it. Again, this podcast is just like, we're just simping here for like Del Toro's Pinocchio. Catch it on Netflix December the 9th and maybe in select theaters. If that shit's playing in theaters, I'm running to go see that. That's everything. That poster and that movie, and I cannot wait to see it. Where was I going? Because I had Avatar. No, before Halloween.
Oh.
We were with Halloween. You guys didn't answer, so I moved on. But I think I didn't give you a chance to answer.
Yeah.
Okay, you answer first, and then I'll get to Avatar. What happened? I'm sorry.
To answer your question, I have, in fact, been feeling Halloween spirit. I don't know if I told you last week, but I went to Old Town in San Diego, and I went to a scary house.
Yes.
It's called the Whaley House.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, it was like right after the movie too. So
Yeah.
I was
very festive.
Yeah. Very scary. And then, well, yeah, the movie, and then this weekend, actually, I'm gonna finally see Hocus Pocus.
The sequel.
And, yes, Hocus Pocus 2, and it's gonna be like a little Halloween
watch
thing.
party.
Yeah, kind of. And then next weekend, I'm going to Oogie Boogie Bash for the first time. So
Really? That's your first time ever?
Yeah, well, I've been to the
Oh, the one before, but this is the new one that took over. Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, Halloween.
Say hi to Ernesto de la Cruz for me, okay?
I know. Have you seen videos?
Yes.
So
you showed it to me
good.
when we were there
Oh,
in
I did.
freaking LA. Remember? We had that was a shared experience. We saw it at the same time.
Yeah.
Like that's when they gave us the preview for Oogie Boogie Bash, which however they made that work is just pure Disney magic. So that's great.
So
It really is.
Fun times.
Yes. For David, what about you? Are you like have you been watching any spooky stuff lately to get yourself in the mood for it, or you're just kind of like whatever?
I mean, I just saw Werewolf by Night and Hocus Pocus 2. But
I
that's
really
about
want to
it.
see the Netflix show, but I don't want to watch it by myself. So like I've been trying to see it with David, but we just never see each other.
Yeah.
Wow.
But other than that, not really. I don't know. Halloween, I like Halloween, but it's not really my holiday. I prefer Christmas better. So, not really in the spirit of Halloween.
And I don't know what it is about these last couple of years, but I've just been getting more into it. It helps that, Mike Flanagan has something out every October. So that kind of, helps bring more enthusiasm into it. But there's been a lot of content out this October for this season. It's been one of the best in a long time. There's just a number of options that are out there, including Werewolf by Night, which we'll get to in a minute. So much so that, as a matter of fact, and Werewolf by Night, and this may be one of the biggest compliments as to like what I can say about Werewolf by Night in the whole season. I was so into it, I've made the decision to like dive full just into, for the first time ever, watching the classic Universal Monsters movies, which I'd never seen any of them. But thankfully, I knew somebody who had all of them in one box collection, as a matter of fact. Peter had all of this, and I was like, you know what? Fuck it. Why not? And so I'm going to go and watch all of these because why the fuck not? It's like, Dracula, Mummy, Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein. I know them. I know these people in a way, and you know the iconography. You know that these movies were like so influential. And because pop culture is so ever present, you kind of have a familiarity with them. But I think it's time for me to go back and actually experience these movies. And thankfully, he has this beautiful physical media collection Blu-ray disc here with amazing cover art and even apparently some even extensive behind-the-scenes features in there as well. So I cannot wait. That's going to be my weekend right there. So I cannot wait to dive into those. Anyway, back to the Avatar thing. Newsflash? Do people still use that term? Go back to the 2000s newsflash? I don't dislike Avatar as much as I used to. And you know what it is? I figured out why it was such a forgetful movie in the first place. So, it turns out Peter had time to escape his eternal suffering from doing 2 college intensive course programs at once, as well as a full-time job. That is not recommended, by the way. And he has been suffering mentally. But out of the goodness of my heart, I went and freed him, and we went to go see Avatar in 3D like what David did. There's not much to say as far as like the 3D. Like, it's pretty. It's nice. It's 3D. It's... Are you okay, Alexis?
Yeah, there's a plane flying by.
It's a plane, right?
Yeah.
That never happens.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's creepy. Anyway, yeah, it was really good 3D. This is the thing. It's actually a really good movie in terms of like giving me the cheese that I like in a lot of like old films. And here's why it's kind of weird. This movie came out when that type of filmmaking was basically like being phased out. It was 2009. And if you go, and like what David did, you go back and watch that movie, there are a lot of lines in there that are classic James Cameron, which I love, of course. But it's just the kind of things that people have convinced themselves are examples of what makes a bad movie. You know? Like, I don't know where it became secondhand taste that, oh, if I pinpoint any kind of cheesiness or cheesy moment, that's bad. Mm-hmm. And you're bad. And you're not good at your job. And you're not writing good dialogue. And this means that this story isn't as good as I thought it was. And I cannot tell you enough how much I hate that mentality. Because so much of what we dismiss as quote-unquote cheese is inspired and there to a point for sincerity, for something called emotion, for something called heart. And we've just lost that. And there is a lot of moments in there that really do work. And it also features a lot of really wonderful visual effects and things that blockbusters don't have anymore, which with interesting designs. So there are a lot of good points there. The problem for me with the movie is he's such a boring lead. Sam Worthington has to be one of the, like, think about like everything else. It's his job to hold the film around him. And there were moments, because a lot of the film also is him inner monologuing, and it's bad enough that he sounds boring, but then it gets to the, and it's an accent. I think he's an English actor, so he's using an American accent, which that's not good either. So it just sounds off to begin with. It's not all that interesting. It doesn't grab you, at least the way he speaks. And so invariably because of him, you lose interest. And there are moments throughout the movie where he's talking and I'm like, I'm sorry, what? I just dozed off. And so to me,
all that just like unlocked a memory.
Did it? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Like ultimately, it's like everything around the movie is really good. Like it's competent, really good filmmaking. But it's him at the center of it that's just like weighing the whole thing down. Like imagine, for you will, if Pirates of the Caribbean came out and Johnny Depp was just dull. Like that's what this feels like. It's like something like, and I feel like it's because of that. Like to me, and again, I know other people are different. If you're a fan of Nolan movies, then you clearly are not as concerned with characters because he isn't. And so you must not be. And I like Nolan films, but not as much as, I guess, a lot of other people. Because Nolan is prioritized with high concept films. You know, the execution of like how we can make this so fragmented and grand and absurd in a way with no regard at all with characterization. And so when you have a movie like this, that's a big film, and I don't care about your characters, that's a big problem for me. Like, you almost don't even exist to me if you can't even make me care about your characters, you know? Mm-hmm. Like, think of all the other blockbusters. I mean, I care about Paul Atreides in Dune. I care about all the people in that movie, in that universe, and to see where it goes forward. Avatar, I'm going to see the sequel for the visual effects, and to see water on the screen, and I'm hoping it's better in terms of characterization, because that was the big thing that was lacking. And look, to be fair to the other actors, they do a very good job around it. It's just they're not the leads.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing, I think, for me, that keeps the movie.
And they base it on the guy a lot. Like...
One wonders what we would feel if James Cameron had cast somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe somebody with charisma. Because you need that in a lead. And it's the same thing, and I was talking about it with Peter. It's the same mess that Tron Legacy found themselves into.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you saw Tron Legacy, but that movie had it was full of amazing, interesting ideas. I love the production design. Jeff Bridges is amazing, of course, and just the visuals. But it was just weighed down by a lead character played by a lead actor who just didn't have any charisma to keep my interest. Both those films, I think, came out 1 year apart from each other, interestingly enough.
Stop.
No,
oh
literally.
My God.
Yeah, Avatar was 2009, was in December. And at some point in the summer, I would say 2010, was Tron Legacy. Yeah.
Goddamn.
Yep. Goddamn indeed. But yeah, that was my experience with Avatar. And I'll give it this. It made me interested to see at least... It made me give a little bit of a shit about the sequel. So I'll be there and I'll see it. And it's not a bad movie. It's just, I feel like it's a really good example of what, to me, there are a lot of people out there that throw the accusation miscast too lightly. And in a lot of places, it's mostly unfair, I would say, when I usually hear it. But I think this is kind of the textbook example of miscast, because look at how little I care about the rest of the film. That's the thing for me.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, let's go ahead and move on to the litany of things that we have to discuss this week. Werewolf by Night, as a matter of fact. This was a 54-minute... You can either call this a television special or a short film. And technically speaking, you'd be right both ways. This is one of the rare instances where it's like, yeah, either way, it's kind of like... It can be considered both, in a way. Like all the holiday specials are considered short films, but also television specials. It's like, whatever. Anyway. This is where it gets murky. And that, to be fair, it's always been murky with that particular genre. This was directed by Michael Giacchino. Based on the comic Werewolf by Night, I assume. Because Marvel Comics and DC Comics have been around for so long, at some point they delved into a whole monster side of their comics. And that's interesting. Anyway, this was directed by Michael Giacchino. And here is the description by Letterboxd. Of course, we wouldn't have it any other way, right? There is no escaping the night. On a dark and somber night, a secret cabal of monster hunters emerge from the shadows and gather at the foreboding Bloodstone Temple following the death of their leader. In a strange and macabre memorial to the leader's life, the attendees are thrust into a mysterious and deadly competition for a powerful relic, a hunt that will ultimately bring them face to face with a dangerous monster. That's Werewolf by Night. And yeah, David, I want to hear what you thought.
I thought it was okay. I really liked the main character, and I really liked Ted.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, overall though, I mean, it really was just fine for me. Although I would have liked this particular movie or special, I'll say special, to be longer, to actually be 2 hours long and actually get to know more of these characters and all that. But I really do hope they keep this up, like these kinds of specials, just 1 hour special.
Mm-hmm.
Because for one thing, this is far better directed than any of the other Marvel stuff that we've seen so far. And so it's just, I want to see creativity on these things, you know, like especially Giacchino with the score. You know, he fucking he went all out with that one, and just it was really good and all that. But I want to see more creativity, and it's like you can do that here and on the Disney Plus service and all that. Like, I don't know why they don't, but like you can do it there. And also, I like that it was just this 54-minute special, because I would feel like, let's say if those two main characters on the special come out in an Avengers movie or come out in some other, in the Blade, you know, if they come out in Blade, I'd be more than happy to tell someone, oh, if you want to know who these characters are, just watch it here on Disney Plus. You know, it's better to say that than to say, oh yeah, Miss Marvel, there's a show about her, you know, go spend 4 hours of your time watching this show. Although I do enjoy the show, it's one of my favorites. I feel a lot better telling someone to watch a special rather than a show. And Kevin Feige can just skip the whole origin story if he does more of that kind of stuff.
I would say Kevin Feige can just go away, and that would solve mostly all the issues that I have. Here's the thing, and why ultimately I'm happy this was a special and not a series. I'm happy with how this went. If this was a series, I most likely wouldn't be happy, and I would be here bitching and complaining to you about all the issues that I have with it that probably could have been avoided. And why do I think that's how I would feel? Look at the track record for all of the other Disney Plus shows. I'm sorry, it's like, I don't know why I would be interested in a series when every single time they do one, I come back here and I say, well, this is where they went wrong, this is where it could have been better, and the all-knowing Kevin Feige is the one responsible for all of these problems. So ultimately, if this was, for example, a 6-episode series, then the problems would have come back. And here's why, and I talk about this with Peter, and I feel like we both agree with this, and that is, you do not feel Kevin Feige's presence in this entire special. It does not feel that at any point he showed up, gave notes, or demanded anything. He seemed to let this be its own thing, and didn't fuck with it in any meaningful way. And that's why it's good. Like, legitimately, that's why it's good. And we also have to, like, examine what this is. This is a 54 minutes TV special. This is not going to be a showcase for characterization. It is not going to be a showcase for any kind of depth. It is here to do one thing. To be, and you see it off the bat from the beginning, to be an homage to the classic Universal monster movies. That's all it's really here to do. Along the way, to showcase some, wacky and quirky personalities, which it has in spades. None the least of which being Man-Thing and the Werewolf by Night. To me, because this is basically all this was supposed to be, this really went above and beyond what I was expecting. Because in this kind of special runtime that we have, 54 minutes here, granted, we knew going into it, this wasn't going to be a lot of meat on the bones. I would say I was very much blown away with what Michael Giacchino was able to do. I'm not familiar with what short films he has done before. I heard he had made some short movies. I don't know of them. This is the closest thing to a feature length he's made, even though it's not obviously a feature length, it's a special. This is one of the most impressive directorial jumps I've seen in a while. And from a Marvel perspective, you're damn right. It is easily the most impressive directed anything has been in the Marvel Universe for a long time now. understanding, of course, this is supposed to be an homage to those classic movies. A lot of what you see here is borrowed by it. But I mean, I just got to be honest with you. Like, everything about it was working for me from the very beginning to the Marvel special presentation that was, of course, composed by Giacchino, to the remixed, if you will, Marvel Studios fanfare, but with a spooky vibe to it. Of course, that's Michael Giacchino's original orchestration. The Marvel music that plays in front of the logo, he wrote that music, and so like he's remixing it to a Halloween version of it, basically. And then he plays the Werewolf by Night theme that he, of course, composed, which is fucking amazing. And then it begins with like a old school, like almost as if you're watching a clip reel announcement, like in a world of legends. And then the vibe about this is so overwhelming and so intoxicating and so much fun. That's something the MCU doesn't do these days for me, you know? Like, I just finished watching like a whole bunch of episodes of She-Hulk in a row, and it's just, it looks so flat. It looks so boring. Half the time it looks like a commercial. The other half it looks like we're at a backlot of a green screen. And to see Werewolf by Night, like, first of all, I mean, and you know this, I said it when we talked about the noir episode of S.H.I.E.L.D. I'm a sucker for anything in black and white. I just love that aesthetic. I still need to see the black and white version, the noir version of Nightmare Alley. But the noir version of Logan I have seen, and that was awesome. So the aesthetic is there. Even the title sequence felt right out of it. The cinematography, there was film grain. Like, it was made to look like it came out of that era. And if you noticed in certain moments, there were cigarette bubbles. Yeah, were on the film, as if it was made from that era. So like that stuff just like speaks to my heart off the bat. And for the first time in a long time, we have something that, technically speaking, was produced by Kevin Feige, and that was allowed to go all the way with what it was trying to do. And even more to the point, there is a certain sense of camp, because that's what the era that it came from was like, in a way. But then, and yes, I know, because it was black and white, maybe they felt more at ease to do this. The violence that we see here is the stuff that, in all honesty, Moon Knight should have had. And in all honesty, is what Blade should have if it ever gets made. And we see multiple throats be slashed. We see someone get an arrow through the chin, up their mouth. We have like people who are horribly like mangled, burned alive, and then turned to ashes. And there's a certain sequence where the camera, like Giacchino, like zooms in as the Werewolf by Night is like massacring everybody, and blood just squirts on the camera. And this is Marvel. This is on Disney Plus, and this is so unsanitized the way everything else is. You have to be appreciative of the fact that something was made and allowed to be like this when everything else never is, when it should be. So all of these things just being present, being there, was enough to just like, wow. And they're so well done. It's so well handled. To say nothing, of course, of the actors that were here that were, you know, for the most part, just there to embody a whole mood, which is what, as much as you can do, but they do it so well. Gael, I mean, he is supposed to be kind of like a calming presence here until he's not, because of course he is the one that plays the titular character, right? I love the look of the old werewolf, and I even some of the, when he's transforming, and we have like the camera is zoomed in on Elsa, who's the co-lead. Elsa is the daughter of the Bloodborne family, who's also competing for this like amulet or artifact, or if you will. But there's this wonderful shot where the camera just like zooms in on Elsa while she's trapped in the cage with him, and you see her reaction, and in the background you have the shadows of Gael transforming into the monster itself. It's so good. You have this wonderful shot where, what's her name? Harriet Sansom Harris, who played Lady Bloodstone here, who was also, I believe, in one sequence last year from Licorice Pizza. She chewed up the scenery. She was perfectly cast. She herself kind of steals the show from everybody else because she eats up every scene. But there's this moment where she's like laughing, like, oh yeah, this ridiculous transformation, like, I'm scared. And then like he takes her arm, pulls her up to the cage. You see her face just like be pressed up against the cage, and her face is so, it's the stuff that it's not the best stuff in the world, but it's like when you're so depraved of just any semblance of creativity, any semblance of risk, this comes along and it completely blows everything out of the water. This is a mood. It is so, the aesthetic is just perfect for the time that we're in. This is easily the best the MCU has been all year. This is probably my favorite thing. And look, it helps that it's 54 minutes. That's the sad reality. If this were longer, if this were a series, I don't think I'd be as happy. I just don't. So in my mind, I consider it a short movie. And because I do, this is the best movie they've had in years. So I was really into it. And then also seeing other people's reactions, like, it's just a lot of fun. Like, don't get it twisted that I'm saying like, oh, it is like, it's ultra violent or it's ultra spooky. No, there are like maybe like one or two things here that could be considered semi, like, oh, he's there. But you're just there for the fun. You're just there for the mood. And it's such, I would say, one of the best things to put on for the season that we're in. So ultimately, that's where I landed with it. Like, I watched it one night and I'm like, this is pretty good. But, the more time I had to sit with it and just think about it, and then also I watched a reaction to that special yesterday, and then oh yeah, I remembered a lot of it. And these shots were so good. It's just, look, Giacchino, I'm really excited to see what this does for him and leapfrogging into this realm of directing, but I also would say, to me, this is what you get in the Marvel Universe when you remove Kevin Feige, or when he removes himself from it. It's allowed to be something interesting and fun, and not be bogged down by anything else. Because if we could have had, I don't know. I mean, if Blade was in here, I wouldn't mind, because it kind of would make sense if he was here. Honestly, he is a hunter, and this does feature hunters. But because he wasn't, you get the sense that no one at Disney or Marvel thought about this as anything but an afterthought. Like, you can tell, and we'll get to this with Andor, you can tell the projects they're not preoccupied with. You can tell where they have their hands on, and they're micromanaging everything, and when they're not. It's sad to say, but that's kind of where it is. So for me, I would say Werewolf by Night was such an entertaining experience. I would hope that people would, and I think I have, like, if you did see it, you would feel similarly to it. So yeah, I really, really, really loved it, and might even watch it again. Who knows? But that is Werewolf by Night. Let me see here. If we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up there, let's go ahead and get to Andor, because that's just a great segue into this. What Andor did this week was nothing short of the best episode of television Star Wars has produced. These are
I agree.
people, like, look, there are no legacy characters here. I don't consider Andor to be a legacy character. Come on, he's been in one movie, relatively new. We're not, even though it's the era, I don't consider it to be that. We don't really have characters. We have more archetypes. But really, again, everything that we see in Andor just sells home the point. Like, why are we here? Why does this show even exists? It's about something. It's about oppression. Like, I know we say the same things every week, but you're seeing it just shown off so well that in the midst of, like, think about like all the mystical stuff, or even some of the more lighter fare, like with like what we saw with Star Wars Rebels with the Jedi, and then, you know, the Sith. Like, we know what's happening with them. You know, we know at this time there's Darth Vader, there's Inquisitors, the Jedi are slowly coming back a little bit, but not really. There is a little bit of a rebel insurgency, which is very much still in its infancy, but like, it's the shit that we saw this week that I think a lot of people have been wanting for a long time, to see the actual formation of the rebellion. And as you saw in this episode, it's not cut and dry. It's not so black and white. There's a lot of twists and turns that kind of make you realize, like, no, it's brutal, and it's cutthroat. And this episode was what I think a lot of people believe Rogue One is. I think Rogue One is a halfway decent movie. Personally, how I feel. I think the third act is amazing.
Yeah.
Everything else before it, not so much.
Yeah.
It's not. But a lot of people are convinced it's like the best Star Wars movie, period. Best Star Wars movie in the Disney era. And
Well,
Like, these are like people who it's just crazy because, again, okay, these are the people who have had enough of the way things are set up.
yes.
But we don't ever see that until right now.
We don't ever see regular people
Yeah.
be the main characters and having be about them and their struggle.
In this
That's
war.
the beauty. Exactly. That's the beauty of the show, is that we get like main characters from both the Empire's perspective and the perspective of these new insurgents. And we get to see their stories. And it's like, I personally feel on some level, people, aside from like not giving them the parade of endless characters of the week that Favreau usually gives them so they can feel good about themselves, like, oh, I know him, I'm a good Star Wars fan, ain't that nice? Aside from that, them not getting that in this show, I think it's also like uncomfortable for some people, because then they have to like admit that Star Wars has always been this political. It's always been about something.
Yeah.
When so many of them have, like, I don't know, refused to, they've basically like chosen to die on this hill that Star Wars was never political. Which is so
literally
insane.
called Star Wars.
Yes. Which, that is such a self-defeatist like argument to begin. People who think that are so inherently wrong, and they always will be. But then you have this show that finally, in a very realistic way, makes you understand what it was fucking like to be there. And this shit is intense. Look, the writing has, been really well done, and it continues to this week. The direction, particularly this week, was exceptional. Just every moment, like, they dotted every I, they crossed every T. All of the people, as they moved, as our insurgent team, led by Andor here, obviously, as they infiltrated the base during the moment of the eye, basically, which this beautiful, meteor shower that comes over, and the indigenous people come over to witness it. They use that as a perfect cover to capture the commandant, to be able to steal from them the salary of the Empire. Like, and that's one of the best things to go after. You go after their paychecks. That's beautiful. And Of course, this was a plan that had been, gestating for months now. Every member of the team had been practicing their stuff. It's really, and I watched it a second time today. It's really foreboding, one of the things, and I now realize it was foreboding, but like in the first scene of the episode, as it's the morning of and they're waiting for things to get started, Andor has this conversation with one of the young kids, basically, who's there with their group. And as they finish their conversation, he says to him, don't worry, you'll sleep when this is done, which he did.
That's what I said.
Second time watching it. The second time watching it, I noticed I kind of laughed a bit.
Well, yeah, because that was pretty. You go back and you realize, oh yeah, I think that was pretty deliberate on the part, like pretty on the nose. But now knowing what happens in the end, no, look, why I say this is the best hour of television that Star Wars has given us, because it was, well, the best directed. It was exhilarating, and it was just the anxiety all the way through. Like they crafted all of the moving pieces between the actors and the set pieces of this episode so brilliantly, and the execution was damn near perfect. It is insane to me. It is insanity to me how just this very year we had people lining up to personally marry Bryce Dallas Howard for her supposed exceptional performance as director for that episode of, I don't know, technically it's an episode of Boba Fett, but it's really an episode of The Mandalorian. It doesn't really matter either way. It sucked still either way, but people still believe it was like the best thing ever. And there was like people demanding for Bryce Dallas Howard to direct a Star Wars movie. Where is that love for this? Where is that level of adoration for this show? Where it's actually fucking deserved.
Where it's telling a story.
Brilliant. It is telling a story. It is executing it to near perfection. And even then, providing some unforeseen twists and turns as the episode concludes, with plenty of intrigue that propels our lead into a far more grayish area than even we were convinced he could be capable of. So, excellent. All of this was excellent. Even bonus points for featuring an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. actor on here, who we had last week. I don't know if you called it. It was.
I was going to text you about it.
Yeah. I knew.
Yeah. That's why I didn't, because I thought chances are he probably would have seen it. I don't know.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, of course I would see it. Nick Blood, who played Lance Hunter, was here. Of course he gets shot, but hey. We're not going to complain here. He got a job on Star Wars, so we're happy about that. Hey, it's great. That's what I thought. You guys?
No, it's funny that you brought up Rogue One a while ago, and it's funny because in the first part of the movie, it's all set up. Set up for the characters, set up for the story, set up for the
setting up 7 characters.
I can't remember how many characters, but it's all just set up.
Wait, hold on. Can you name them all?
No.
I can't even remember the
name. Just try it. We have Jyn Erso.
Cassian.
Cassian Andor.
The blind guy.
K2.
The
K2SO.
SO? Okay, yeah.
The droid is K2SO.
Oh.
And then
I forgot about the droid.
I just know the blind guy and his friend.
The guy with the guns. Honestly, I think I've seen that movie maybe twice.
Same?
Well, I've seen it maybe thrice.
Yeah. But, it's just...
like, that last act is not enough for me to go back and watch it.
No, like, that to me is like one of the movies where I won't watch the beginning. I'll just jump to the third act, and that's it. If I want to watch it. But even then, it's just like mindless, like action.
I probably just, after this whole series is done, I'll probably go and watch it again. But just the third act. Probably. I don't know. Maybe if we get the other characters on the show later on, like if they meet them, I don't know. I doubt it. I think the only one is the one, he's like a mechanic or something. I can't remember his...
The gun guy?
No, not the gun guy. The one that makes up the name Rogue One.
Riz Ahmed, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah, I think he's probably the
Academy
only
Award winner, Riz Ahmed.
He, no, but yeah, like I was saying, like, you know, that movie was just all setting up for the third act and all that. But then this show, you know, it takes it to another level in terms of setup. Like, we're getting every single detail of the planning process, the way each character feels about the mission, about their cause, and all that.
The anxiety that they feel over the things that they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, again, we finally get to see the hardships that these people go through because
in a time to be
they're
extra
already
clear,
going through hardships.
in a time to be extra clear about this, there is no formal rebellion yet.
No.
This is well before that. This is the true beginnings of people, just like a handful of people saying, you know what, fuck this.
Yeah.
We're going to take on the whole empire by ourselves. This is the real embodiment of that with no backup at all.
They're setting up the backup.
But yeah, and then even up to this episode, you know, we're still getting every single detail of the process. Because honestly, like, I was watching it with Ella, and I was just kind of like, we can skip this part, just because it was when they were at the little temple place where the native people were at, and I was just like, we can just skip to when they actually get inside the base now, you know that. And then even then, and then once we got there, I just skipped to when they got to the vault, and then that's when we get to the whole action scene. Like, there's some stuff that you can cut down on, but I like those. Me personally, I like the little details that they keep showing off, just because it builds up the anxiety level to when shit hits the fan and all that.
And I know it's already been mentioned, but it's like, I feel like part of why it feels so, in a way, as much as a Star Wars show can be, although the way it feels so down to earth is so remarkable and so relatable in a way, because this really does feel like real people in the Star Wars universe. This is the closest we've ever gotten to it. And part of it is the casting. The casting. Like, every actor, a lot of the actors get a chance to just, like, shine. Even in the beginning of the episode has a really wonderful, like, in a way, monologue. The commandant, who's talking about, like, you know, the indigenous people that they pushed off their lands and who they allow to come and see their, like, not subtle with that.
It's because David was, like, looking at me during that conversation, and, like, I was paying attention, but
yeah,
I kind of, like, expected something like that for them to say that, because every word out of their mouth is horrible.
They're fascists.
No, I mean,
that's what the Empire is. They're fascist. That's the whole thing. And you know, I mean, you just watch it. If you understand what Star Wars is, if you understand what the Empire is, they're fascists. This is what they do. And what was the point of that whole exchange? Why did we watch two Imperial, like, superiors discuss that? Because that's how twisted and demented they are. That's how they view people. And you didn't notice it. I don't know if people noticed, but in that same, like, conversation, it was, like, not so subtly, like, confirmed that these people would be enslaved the following year to build whatever factories that they have or they're going to have on that system. Like, that was just, like, oh, so subtly, like, thrown off. Like, oh, yeah, we're going to make them into slaves next year. Because, after all, you have to have some labor force, right?
It's in the plans. It's in the schedule.
It's in the plans.
The schedule.
Explain to me how this isn't political. But again, it's all here to serve a purpose. Like, there's a reason we also see, we cut at the very end of the episode, we cut back to Mon Mothma. What is ultimately the point of that, like, small sequence? Well, we get to see finally her doing her actual job. But even before people, like, make a ruckus because they get, like, the news update on their, like, data pads that, you know, they stole money or whatever, no one was listening to her.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody was like, oh yeah, she's there talking anyway, what's for breakfast tomorrow? Nobody was there, like, taking her seriously, and you felt it immediately because she's, like, actually, like, she's, like, in a lot of ways, and I really wish there would be some
She
That's
was
a
like
character-
presenting a bill.
Right, basically. But it was a humanitarian cause, and no one gives a shit about that, especially with this kind of regime. Brief aside, Mon Mothma is a character that really fascinates me, and I'm happy we're getting a lot of exploration into her even here. And maybe there has been, and I just haven't been aware of it, but there needs to be more, like, media. Like, I wish there'd be, like, a novel with her, like, just to get through life. Like, I wish the Clone Wars, even though they delved into it a lot, but, like, more on a character focus. I want to see, like, Mon Mothma's friendship with Bail and with Padme back in the Clone Wars. And you see, like, little, like, bits here and there in the actual animated series that, like, contributed to her feeling the way that she would, even all these years later.
Mm-hmm.
I just, like, that's a character that I want to see. I want to know more about.
Yeah,
You know?
the second episode, I haven't finished it. I skipped over to the third just so we can have this conversation. But I saw, I don't know if she comes out in the rest of the episode, but the breakfast scene, I think, with her daughter. Ooh.
That's
so
intense.
good and so like fuck.
Actually,
I kept turning to David and being like, oh my god.
Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if the next 3 episodes is gonna be a big focus on her, because she's the one that kind of transferred the money into that place, and she's already on very thin ice with
Everybody.
with everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So she's can probably be big on the next 3 episodes.
We'll see, because, like, we'll see how far it goes. Well, how far it goes before she has to, like, flee. She did have a guest appearance, the character, I mean, in Rebels, I believe, season 3, where she formally resigned from the Senate, renounced the Empire, and declared the Rebel Alliance. There was a whole thing that happened there in one of the, let's just say, least remembered episodes of the series. It wasn't bad. It just wasn't anything that remarkable about it. But that is a moment in, technically speaking, canon, which I'm hoping we can see happen on this show from a different perspective. Maybe we can actually see Cassian's reaction to that. We'll see.
Because it's going to have more seasons, right? So
at least one more.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of hope it's not too soon.
Yeah.
Because I want to see her in this position that she's in.
Right.
And then, like, way later on.
Yeah, I didn't even remember that, David. I think that you're right. I'm sure she's probably going to be questioned next week about, like, how this even happened in the first place, because this is, you don't fuck with people's money. Like, that crosses a line. That definitely crosses the line. But we'll see. We'll see what happens there. But the whole point of, like, why this is there is just to show you and what a shambles everything is. Just what a complete state of shambles. And why, like, this kind of, like, this empire is just oppressive more than the ways that we already knew it was. It's actually showing you. Even the ethnic cleansing that was happening there. And just, like, the complete, like, destruction of indigenous peoples all over the galaxy. To say nothing, of course, of the millions that were enslaved. Pretty horrific. And this is before the fighting even starts. This is before the war. And how, like, awful things are to begin with.
Like, you understand why these people took such drastic measures.
Right.
Now, in a way, you know? Because before, like, yeah, we knew the rebels and stuff, but we never saw just how bad it was, you know?
Right.
How we knew that these people were horrible, but we never, like, I think the most we saw was Order 66 and
right.
the killing of all the younglings. Like, and I even told David, like, in this episode, we get, like, a really bad death scene, and I'm like, we've never seen anything like this. And it wasn't even, like, a situation where he was like, fighting. It was after that. You know? Like, it, yeah. So good.
That character, one of the things, just to piggyback on what you were saying there, In the second episode, he has an interesting exchange with Cassian about like how the Empire deliberately like limited to a tremendous capacity the technology made available to the citizens all across the Empire. And to me, this is actually a wonderful way to, because I'll say this to me as a young, I was like a 12-year-old basically when I first saw like the prequels and then also the original movies. One of the things that kind of bugged me was how in the prequels, the technology just seemed far more advanced than what people had in the original movies. Now, of course, the real world answer is, well, duh, Alexis, some of these movies were made back in the 70s and 80s. And of course, we have movies here that were made in the 2000s, my time. Well, and what was always like kind of alluded to or assumed, it's kind of really confirmed with what he was, talking to Cassian, which is like, well, the reason why the tech is so like backward these days was, well, that's what they decided to do. They decided, the Empire, to limit our access to technology, limit the access to information. Gee, I wonder where I've heard that before. Even the show, I will say, to give not to dismiss what the animated series as a whole have done to expand like this era. Bad Batch had a couple of really nice episodes, the first season anyway, that kind of explored on this. One of the episodes that we talked about, or that I mentioned to you, Alexis, where they featured the return of the clone LaQuain, who was the deserter. They had to flee the planet they were on because in the early days of the Empire, like not even like a whole year after episode 3 happened, well, they were already beginning to register people. Mm-hmm. And that's how people were like getting the fuck out of here. Like, no, thank you. I'm not letting you tag me like a dog. I'm getting out of here. So a lot of these ideas have been out there. But no other show, I think, has kind of like used them to actually prove a point the way that Andor is making it. It's so fucking great. It really is. And speaking of Andor, he had some couple of really great moments where you're just like really questioning now, like, there's just a genuine struggle in there because you see a guy who is genuinely sympathetic toward people who want to rebel against the Empire, but sees complete futility in the act of doing so. And at the end of the day, you get a little bit of a echo of Han Solo in there, where it's like, I still got to look out for number one, because if I don't, well, what's the point of all of this? These people are going to get themselves killed. They did get themselves killed. Why am I caring about these people? And so you get moments. I love that exchange he had in the second episode, which you just said you watched, where he like tells them, yeah, I'm here to get paid. Deal with it. And if you don't, I'm getting the fuck out of here. I love that moment. Mm-hmm. Because that's the truth. Like, he was there because he was getting paid to an extent, sure. But ultimately, part of him does want to be there. He doesn't want to admit it just yet. Mm-hmm. And there is parts of him that did like some of those people, particularly the kid, which only makes it that more.
He understands him, and I think he feels seen.
Yes, mm-hmm.
Because they all have, even if he doesn't want to admit it, he does have the common goal with them in tearing this system down in a way,
right? I don't know if the right word would be gruesome, or just like, I don't know if that's the right word of saying it, but like the way he died.
Oh my God.
As they're getting away, he falls back and then he's just crushed by one of the like payrolls. Mm.
Wild. Wild.
That's not something you expect on Star Wars.
That's something you don't expect with Disney.
No. Not at all. And it was like, oh no. Ooh. When you saw it, it was like, oh.
And then,
but I mean, but still, it was really cool that he pulled through though, and was still navigating Andor out of the meteor shower and all that. That was sick, honestly. Like, dang.
It was a great
MVP.
sequence for sure.
No, I mean the whole thing was just like so fucking beautiful to watch, honestly.
Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah. Great. Yeah, I was sad about that. But then it also just shows you the cost. Look how much it cost all of them. For just like ultimately like a small victory, but still a big victory in its own right. But then what happened immediately thereafter? One of the guys is seemingly always intended to stab them in the back. And you think, oh shit, Cassian, what are you going to do? He just shoots him. But then that makes you think, well, maybe he will do the honorable thing. And to an extent he does, but not without also saving his own skin. Where he basically does the same thing he just shot that guy for, which he just like robs them blind and takes some of the money for himself. And just like walks away from this whole thing, which you still see that resistance there with him to commit to this completely. And I appreciate this show for allowing the main character to have dimensions to them and to have an internal personal struggle that is tied in thematically with the show. Unlike how a certain somebody else would just make him be the exact same way all the time with no growth or anything interesting happening to him whatsoever.
He would have made him Han Solo.
Yeah.
And honestly, I feel like he would have stayed with them if that guy hadn't like told them to double cross.
Yeah,
like,
and I think
if Favreau
that
had made the show,
like, I think he like left because, I mean, in my head, I think he thought about like how hard it was for everybody to accept him, and then now, like, they wouldn't have believed him, and so like that's why he killed him. Well, because he was a bad person too. But I think he left because he was like, oh, like if they barely like put up with me now, I can't imagine them putting up with me after this whole situation.
I don't know. I guess yeah,
I would say I would say the idea that maybe we walked away with a different idea that for why he did what he did is an example of how wonderful the show is, you know? It's not I guess one would take that comment as a sign of like incompetence because it wasn't that well telegraphed why he did, but no, it could be a whole host of reasons.
Yeah.
This guy keeps it close to the vest.
Yeah.
And doesn't really like is not open with himself just yet. This is a far cry from the Cassian we met in Rogue One. That's for sure. Who was very resolute. Still had, you know, his shadiness to him as well. But this is not a guy that has his core beliefs and principles all the way in there just yet.
Yeah.
As we see, he tries to be a good person, but as we see throughout the episode, he's very capable of murder. And he does.
I mean,
because he has
to. The first like see we see.
Yeah. Hard be it for me to believe that Favreau would have written him like that or this show at all.
Oh yeah,
the way that it is.
absolutely not.
We will be having if Jon Favreau wrote this show at this point, we will be having like Harrison Dula as a co-lead, and the Ghost would be popping in and out. Maybe Ahsoka would have made an appearance. Who knows? Why not? I mean, like somehow like.
We 100% would have had Han Solo in there.
Yeah.
Honestly, yeah. I would believe Han Solo would be there. I would believe.
What's his name?
All of the smugglers.
The Cloud City guy. What's his name?
Oh, Lando.
Oh yeah, 100%. You know who I think they would have brought back? What's his name? The collector guy.
Oh, DJ?
Yes.
DJ.
Somehow.
Benicio del Toro from The Last Jedi. He played a character named DJ. Yeah, probably. I could see it.
What about that pirate guy?
Oh, yes.
Hondo?
Somehow.
Hondo, yeah.
Yeah.
Money. He probably would have been there stealing the money.
Yeah. It would have been like everything else is. Yeah. It's incredible that this was made in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And we still have
6 more episodes.
6 episodes.
I wish they would release them in threes, honestly.
That's, I think, to me, yeah, because every 3 episodes is more or less designed to be one big story. I think it probably would have been better if they had just dropped 3 episodes a week.
That's,
for the sake of the story.
That's what Arcane did. They dropped it 3 episodes.
Yes. And Arcane was amazing. Don't forget that thing existed. Arcane was amazing. Happy it won that Emmy for Best Animated Series.
Nice. Well
deserved. And I cannot wait for season 2 and those seasons beyond. If you haven't seen it, Kyle,
please go watch it. Oh my God. Don't... Whatever.
He hasn't seen anything Mike Flanagan related ever. But he's perfectly content. I'm sure he's watching Gilmore Girls or House MD or something. I don't know. He does not care. I bet you if you ask him, he still hasn't finished Turning Red.
Oh my God. See, I always think I'm pretty bad at like keeping up with things.
The fuck are you talking about? Have you met Kyle lately? The idea that he somehow is even watching House of Dragon is a miracle.
I know. Honestly, I'm very surprised. Remember how long it took me to convince you guys to watch it?
Did it take long?
Yes.
Maybe I was just ignoring you. I don't know. Maybe I was like, why did I watch it to begin? I think I was...
You said it was because of me.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Yeah. Oops. Sorry, Alexis.
Maybe I was ignoring you.
Maybe. I don't know. I was just like... Yeah. Anyway. That was Andor. Can't wait to see what happens next week and see what develops. But I will say, like, this was an action-packed episode, but even the episodes that are not and are just, like, all, like, dialogue-focused, I'm into those as well. Because there's so much into those. So, I don't think it's an either-or like some people are making it out to be. Although, I will say, if 3 episodes are dropped every week, I don't think people would have that issue that they're having right now. That's the one thing. It's like... But then again, like... It reminds me of like, because I want to say, I don't know if I don't think you guys, no, I know for a fact you did not, but like the original Star Wars The Clone Wars animated series from 2008, I watched every episode as it first aired since the first episode. And believe me, it was trying sometimes when it got to, I want to say the seasons where they started doing 4-episode arcs. Yeah. And that's what it felt like one every week. Jesus Christ.
Good thing
that's how
I
it felt.
didn't do it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, good thing you binge watched the whole thing. I think to me though, the one that I'm happy I binged was the Tournament of Power arc in Dragon Ball Super, because I know people were like watching that for like over a year.
Oh my God.
And I cannot fathom that. And I'm like, I mean, I used to when I was a kid, but I don't think I have the patience for that anymore. Because, like, some episodes, like... So, like, yeah. To watch that over the course of a year? No. So, yeah. Anyway. Let's go ahead and get to something that is truly, truly special. In ways that I honestly thought to be... I didn't think would be possible when we first started watching House of the Dragon. Of course, it's been no secret that I have been enjoying myself thoroughly all season long through these characters. And I think one of the things, and I feel like it came into focus this week. I mean, it's been the focus every week, but I feel like this particular episode kind of clinched it for me, where an improvement, shall we say, on Game of Thrones overall, here that we have in House of the Dragon, is at the core, you have characters that you genuinely care for, despite their flaws that are vexing and irritating sometimes. But you have some characters here that show genuine sincerity and sentimentality in a way, There is still, of course, the world of Westeros. This is still the world of Game of Thrones. And there are still despicable personalities that inhabit here. But more than just a game being played, what may, at the end of the day, make this season, for example, even more tragic than some of the shit that went down in Game of Thrones, is that you see the real-time destruction of a family. A family that, through the course of, the episodes that we've received, you've really begun to get attached to. And we've been saying it every week. Every episode continues to build and build and build. And in many ways, it's all been leading to where we are right now, or this most recent episode, which, if I'm being completely honest with you, just completely clinched it for me, where it's like, we're no longer talking about this, if we ever were to begin with, as, this is just an extension of Game of Thrones, and it's as good in some ways, and this is so entertaining. No, I feel like the levels that we've been reaching these last few weeks, but particularly this last episode, has kind of like exceeded even some of the highs that we receive with Game of Thrones. And not because of spectacle, not because of like heart-pounding sequences, but out of sheer, genuine emotion that you feel of what transpired here. Truly, one of the best episodes Game of Thrones has ever done, this show or the previous one. One of the best of the year, and a truly strong year, I want to add, of wonderful television. And very moving as well. One of the most moving pieces of television I've seen. And granted, a lot of those moments are centered around one person, but not exclusively. This was a 10 out of 10, if there ever was one. I absolutely loved it. It's one of the rare episodes of the show where it ended, and I wasn't upset. I was just very sad. Just very, very sad. But yeah. Those... We can get more into it, but that's the overwhelming feeling I came away with of this episode is there aren't enough nice things you can say about this. Truly one of the best hours of television I've seen, maybe in my life. Anchored by one of the best performances in a very long time. One of the best performances in the history of Game of Thrones, period. And Mr. Paddy Constantine, congratulations. I think you won your Emmy.
He won his Emmy. He won his Oscar. He won. Just give him all the awards, honestly.
Immediately. Yeah.
Because honestly, like this episode, it was like truly a culmination of everything that was set up from the beginning. It's the 8th episode too, and we still got 2 more. So like, who knows what the fuck that's gonna happen? But honestly, if someone told me like, no, this is the last episode, the other 2 aren't coming out, I was like, okay, that's fine. Just we got Viserys' ending. That's fine. It's tragic, but I love it. But the actor Paddy Constantine, not even. Well, I mentioned this in the past episodes. Matt Smith always steals the show. Like just even those little.
He's
moments.
Matt Smith.
Yeah,
and he does here too. No, when he's on the screen.
No, I was gonna say not even he could steal from Paddy's performance. Like he's still the best one in that episode. So yeah.
No, like to me, it's like not only has he won all those things in my mind, but at least for me in my heart, one of my favorite performances ever. One of my favorite performances ever, and I'm going to say it, my favorite king in Game of Thrones, easily. Even though...
Not Bran?
Even though, of course, he made many a mistake. But damn if he didn't do his best to make it all up in this last moment. And he almost succeeded! Oh my god. Even
so
after all
tragic.
of the fuck-ups, yes.
so sad. So you feel the desperation that he feels in trying to fix all of these things that he realized needed to be fixed so late. And that this is his legacy, that this is, what he'll be remembered for being so indecisive, so, waiting for the storm to come instead of going into it. This episode made me cry. And there's very few episodes of Game of Thrones that had made me cry. But this one, it was bad.
I mean, there are many moments in the episode, well, one particularly, but that are quite exceptional. That if you read on paper, you'd be, or maybe even we talking about it wouldn't make it seem all that great. Why are you guys gawking over this? This doesn't seem, anything out of the ordinary. But it's what you said, David. In this episode, they were able to make just some old man walking across a room one of the most captivating moments in the history of television.
Mm-hmm. No,
as opposed to anything else. But go ahead.
No, as I saw pictures of the episode before I saw it, and one of them was of Matt Smith putting the crown on Viserys. And just watching the images alone, I was kind of oh, okay, that's nice. He's giving him the crown. I see the episode, and now I look at that picture and I cry every single time. Just just afterwards. And so, yeah.
Before we move forward, I do want to say, can we just give a wonderful shout out to all the House of Dragons fans on Twitter, and all the memes. They've been on point every single week, and oh my god, the hilarity!
Our group chat is filled with just Game of Thrones memes.
I hope you shared those with David because those were so funny. They were so good. The ones that made me laugh the hardest were the comparison to to Shrek and that family, because that family dinner was exactly this what we have here in this episode.
My favorite is the one where it goes Viserys to Aemon, look at me, and then it's Mike Wazowski.
But I think the one that I felt the most in my heart was the one where Viserys is walking across the throne room to get to it, and then you have the guy just emotionally saluting to him.
Yes.
That's the one I feel in my heart because that's what I felt like. Honestly, it was such. Look, let's just get to where we are here. The crux of this episode is the Hightowers have Rhaenyra finally where they want her, where by the best of circumstances, if you're a Hightower, Corlys Valerian is missing and most likely dead or will be dead. So before we have a body, here we have Rhaenys, who has been in the 6 years' time, watching over Driftmark. Not Driftwood. I'm sorry, I keep messing that up. Driftmark. We have the Sea Snake's brother, who's bitch, I'm the guy with a penis. It's mine. And I'm black too, and these guys are not. So, enough with this bullshit. This is my place. Get the fuck out of my chair. And if you don't think that's good enough for me, well, good thing the king is so incapacitated. Now we have a queen. Which, pause.
Yes. Wait, we need to start from the beginning, because there's so much. Well, can I just say, before you go? Yes.
Just real quick. I'm just trying to recap a whole bunch of things, and we will get to the beginning. But I just want to say, we had an open admission from the Sea Snake's brother, that all the lords accept that the king is so sick, he is no longer running the show. And a full admittance that the queen is. So why is it, in this instance, we have a queen, and look, guys, the world hasn't burned to the ground yet. Things seem to be carrying on just as fine as they always did.
The king is literally half dead.
Because there's still a king.
Yeah. It's, somehow they'd rather have a guy who's halfway dead than a queen.
Anyway, Alexis, go ahead. You wanted to.
from the beginning, because there's Rhaenyra with her family in Dragonstone. We see Daemon. We see dragon stuff.
Yeah.
We see him getting an egg from Syrax.
Yeah.
There was a little nod to Game of Thrones with the whole 3 eggs thing. I don't think that, because I believe at this point in time, Dany's dragon's eggs have already been laid. But like stuff happens with them, and anyways, but yeah, like that was really cool. He had his little James Franco moment going down the cave to get them. And we see them with like their kids and stuff. And there was a moment that I found kind of interesting and very like a crown moment where I think it's just Viserys, the older kid. He's trying to like learn
High Valyrian,
and she basically tells him like, it's okay, like you have time. What, are you gonna like trying to get rid of me, your queen, so fast?
It was very much of an Elizabeth Charles moment that we would see on the show, probably. Only a lot less mean-spirited.
Yes.
Man, those two would go at each other. I would say the whole... Look, the thing, if we're being real here, I think, like, House of the Dragon is a cross between The Crown and Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Like, those two put together.
Yeah. But, like, that moment I found very interesting because it's just, like, interesting because you have Rhaenyra and Daemon raising these kids who understand the value of being a Targaryen and having that Valyrian blood. And they're not, like, like doing that to their kids. You know what I mean?
Right.
Which, I mean, I guess you can make the argument that it makes them who they are now, which is obviously far better kids than Alicent's kids. And like not shoving this like Targaryen greatness down their throats. But it's still interesting that they don't do that, knowing how Daemon is, especially. Like we literally see him talking about Aegon the Conqueror multiple times, and like in the episode where Laena dies, he's like, he literally like pushes away his daughter that doesn't ride a dragon, you know, which is a very Targaryen thing. It's just like interesting, and I wonder if they're gonna like dive into that later on. But then it's also interesting in contrast to Alicent's kids who have these Targaryen features, especially because they don't look like Targaryens. You would think that they would shove these things down their throats. And then you have Alicent's kids who do look like them, and because they see themselves as these great Targaryens, they are who they are. It's just interesting. I don't know.
No, I mean, yeah, for sure. It's a lot of, it's a great contrast to all the other people, for sure. All of this, of course, happening at the same time, where we find out both Rhaenys and the Snake's brother are separately venturing off to King's Landing to petition to the king because the established succession of Lucerys Valerian, or actually Lucerys Targaryen, right?
Yes.
Or Valerian. Or is it Valerian until he's a Targaryen?
It's technically
it is
Valerian.
Yeah, yes, because the deal they made.
Yeah.
So Lucerys, who would become Targaryen if he were ever crowned king. That's the deal that was arranged. The questioned succession, and they're entertaining it. We see the high towers. They're entertaining it under the guise of, well, are we really going to let a kid like run the best, fleet in Westeros? When really, this is a great opportunity ever there was to knock Rhaenyra on her ass and maybe knock her out for good. Because as we've been seeing throughout these last few weeks on the show, the rumors of them being bastards has only increased. It's only gotten worse. It's been talked about openly in court. And it's reached a point to the threat of Viserys being
stripped away from his birthright.
right, would only, by extension, call into question the legitimacy of Rhaenyra's own claim to the Iron Throne, which is exactly what Otto Hightower wants. Go figure. So what we see is the Targaryens return home to King's Landing.
After 6 years.
After 6 years, and as Otto himself said, I trust they've been received as befits their station.
Oh
what a
my God.
fucking asshole.
Let me just tell you my reaction to this scene of them walking into the castle, not being greeted, and this guy running out, being like, oh my God, nobody's here. What the heck? And I don't know if you guys noticed this, but this is the guy from the 6th episode who said something like, basically she was walking out, like when she had given birth, and he said like, oh, not in these words, but like, if you need anything, like, let me know. And then she replies with like, yeah, there may be a time when I do. I don't know if you guys remember that. Mm-hmm. This is that same guy, and I'm pretty sure Alicent told everybody like, no, why are we gonna greet them? But this guy said no, like, I'ma go. But yeah, my instant reaction was just like, no, what the heck? And then you pan to this giant star circle in the middle of this huge hallway, and it's dark and it's quiet. And then you also go into Alicent sitting in Viserys' chair at the council meeting. Literally, I was just like, no. And this is just like a bam, bam, bam type of scene. Mm-hmm. And my dad had to stop the episode and look at me and was like, what's going on?
Well, I mean, there are legitimate questions. Like, I mean, even before Otto was reinstated as, like, the Hand, as the Lord Hand, we saw that the Queen had, slipped herself into the small council meetings. And, like, talk about, like, Cersei wasn't even allowed in those meetings.
Yeah.
And she was the Queen, like, the Queen. Even in, like, moments when we knew, like, Robert was dying, she still didn't have the kind of, like, favor that Alicent seems to have.
Yeah.
Like, Alicent, in all honesty, has been in charge for a long time now. Under the authority, shall we say, of Viserys, but Viserys has just been so ill and uninterested, if we're being honest with ourselves, with all these matters, that he's been more than happy to leave it with them. But it's just, to me, it just shows the hypocrisy of the thing that they're going after. Like, they've been so consumed, the Hightowers, I mean, with the idea that, Rhaenyra cannot be on the Iron Throne. Now, through Alicent's devices, she feels personally, or at least the things that she's told herself, the reason why Rhaenyra cannot stand is because of her blasphemy all around, left and right, and that would be an affront to the gods, shall we say, or even the lords or whatever. Otto was like, she has a vagina, she can't be on the throne. All the while, of course, Alicent's doing a pretty capable job of running this fucking country without anybody even so much as raising their voices.
Yeah.
It's like, what the fuck here? Like, Rhaenys was, like, passed over. We're now plotting to remove this from Rhaenyra. All the while, Alicent technically is the queen, in charge of everything. And no one seems to question that. Anyway, that's the hypocrisy. How is Lord Beelsbury still alive?
How's anybody still alive?
I love how he's there, and I love Alicent's like, thank you for that exhaustive account or whatever. And he's just like, the guy's so out of it. It's funny how they don't just fire him. if they're so bored with him, just fire him and move on to somebody else. But is he supposed to be master of coin or something?
Oh,
I don't know what he is.
at
He's
this
just
point,
funny.
I don't
when
really
he's
know
there.
who's who.
I'm not sure it really matters, does it? Or it won't matter much longer, shall
Yeah.
I say. Anyway, you're right. The castle has been completely changed. All the Targaryen iconography has been stripped away and been installed with,
A cult.
yes, a religion that the Targaryens do not subscribe to, which is very offensive. I would imagine coming back and seeing this. It's the same religion that the High Sparrow subscribed to, right?
I believe so.
Okay. Well, we all know how that ends. I still love that moment. One of the best moments in television history was the sept blowing up. Beautiful, beautiful. It's like music. It was music. Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's unpleasant, obviously. But what we see next...
I saw before we move on.
Yeah.
I saw this thing or heard this thing, somebody saying, because Alicent has always been this way, like her religious side has always been very, I mean, we see it in like the first few episodes how she like prays to like talk to her mom, and she kind of instills this to Rhaenyra. So it's always been there, but I saw this thing where people were saying that they believe she kind of went overboard in trying to, what's it called? Like, make herself feel better because of what happened with the Strongs. Like, she's trying to compensate for that.
Right.
Which is, I hate that.
Yeah, I wouldn't fuck with religion or with people like that. Look how it turned out for Cersei.
And
Look what Cersei had to do to rid herself of them.
Yeah.
And it was funny though when they brought it up, Rhaenyra and Daemon, and her excuse was just like, "Oh, it's just we want to put it up there because we want to tell people that like there is a higher power than us and all that."
Please.
But like even the way she said it though, like she seemed full of herself and all that.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's like this has always been a story, at least from Alicent's perspective anyway, right? Of overcompensating for everything. I mean, her own paranoia very much has led us down this road, as we've established, I believe, last week. Now, I believe this is one of the moments that is... We see Daemon and Rhaenyra walk into, the king's chambers. And I don't think I myself was prepared. I was bracing myself like, oh, how bad is he going to look this time?
Yeah. It was intense. You felt the awkwardness of just like, my dad literally went, just die already.
He was in agony.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think my favorite thing to see in that scene was how uncomfortable Daemon was and how guilty he felt in not seeing him for 6 years, abandoning him for 6 years. Probably more because he wasn't there before that. And like you saw that with Rhaenyra too. You felt the guilt, you felt the awkwardness, but the way that Matt Smith does it is just so like you feel it.
Mm-hmm.
Without even saying a word either.
Yeah.
Without even saying so much as a word, but you see it on his face. And you see it several different times throughout the episode. And I feel like not enough is being said about, obviously, Matt Smith's contributions to the show, particularly this week, though.
Mm-hmm.
No, I mean, just great work by Matt Smith all around here in this episode. But just the reaction, man. To see Viserys like that, just, half of his face bandaged up, him just like basically looking like a cancer patient, even worse so than that. Like, it's just
burnt patient.
It was sad to see. even but it was also like, as sad as it was to see, there's still like glimpses of him that are there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, it was such a touching moment when Rhaenyra and Daemon introduced their children, their new children, to him. One of which they named after him, Viserys. That was
Instantly
such a.
started crying.
Mm.
I know, right? And it's just, God, and you see it on Rhaenyra and Daemon's face. It's just like, fuck, this is
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah.
This is really bad. Then Alicent walks in.
Well, first we see that he's on Milk of the Poppy. Which makes him like basically unconscious the whole time and not, being able to comprehend what's happening around him.
Because of the pain.
Because of the pain.
How long has he been on that?
Dude.
6 years.
Crazy.
So
But yeah, we have this conversation with Daemon and Rhaenyra while they're waiting for Alicent to come in, where they're basically like criticizing her for how she's kept them. And I will give Alicent this, she walks in and they are both parties are judgmental to each other. But, Alicent does tell him, like, basically, like, you haven't been here in 6 years. You don't know what's been happening with him. You haven't been present in his life for so long.
that's true. That's on them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If basically, like, she could have literally said, do something about it then if you think you've been doing a bad job. And I understand them in, like, they have this, they think that she's doing it with bad intention. And I don't believe that she is. I think that, this is the only way that they could calm whatever is happening with him.
Yeah, basically. But I love that line, the delivery by Damien when they're just like there and she's kind of explaining that she has, been acting on the will of the king, and then he is like, well, how has that, will been expressed? Through like blinks and wheezes? Is that what he said?
No, it's so funny though, but in that scene, Alicent and Rhaenyra, they were talking to each other and they're trying to be like subtle as possible, like about the kind of shit they want to tell each other. But then Daemon just goes right into it, just be like, that's bullshit. It's like, really, the will of the king? Yeah. Did he say to change the castle?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like, did the Grand Maester prescribe the removal of all the Targaryen, iconography? Yeah.
And then they also have that line about her not greeting them, and she's like, the queen has been busy and like ruling a kingdom, and she goes, well, I'm not really the queen or the king.
Sure. Can we talk about, now I know there are a lot of things to mention here, but one of the things that I noticed in this episode was just like the presence of Rhaenys, who, we've obviously, she's been on this show from the very beginning. All of the things that happen on this show, she mostly is present for. And it's like, you remind yourself, man, she could have been queen. She should have been queen because she's still living. She's still healthy. And she's very competent. And she was very capable.
She hasn't.
And she would have been amazing, probably.
She hasn't really changed in those 8 episodes, like in terms of looks.
No. In these
no,
last 20 years.
And she's very skillful at avoiding death. All her, like, basically, right? And so she herself has been like through a lot. Like all the things that she feared years ago have come to fruition. She's lost the whole of her family. And now all she has left is this claim as the Lord or Countess or whatever you want to say of Driftmark. She comes here to just make a last-ditch effort in vain, knowingly, I think she knows, to like put her name in the ring in a way. But yeah, that whole scene with Rhaenyra, where she basically is like, "Fuck you, bitch. I know you killed my son." Well, she actually believes like he's dead.
Yeah. It's so painful to watch because, like, obviously this is the rare occasion where we, like, know that isn't the case and they don't really know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they can't really tell, because if they tell her, well, it kind of ruins everything. Like, for them anyway, I would say Rhaenyra and Daemon, if they let her know, because I think Rhaenys would keep quiet about that. I think she'd be so upset.
I don't think so.
No, not at all, not in the least. And then they would just, everything would blow up.
Like, she literally lost everybody. She would want her son with her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, at the very least.
Cost. Yeah.
No matter the cost. That's very true. But you see it from the state that she sees her father in, Rhaenyra, and even her conversation with Rhaenys. She's at the point of complete desperation, and she knows. And even, I love the way that Rhaenys put it, like, tomorrow the Hightowers land their first blow.
Yeah.
And she doesn't even know what to do, so much so that I feel like it's the night before, right? And she, again, is at her father's bedside, and she just, like, begs him, like, I don't even know if I wanted it that much. I don't even know if I do, but if you really do believe that I'm the person that should carry on and be the queen for the legend of the Song of Fire and Ice, come and defend me.
Yeah.
Because she's completely alone. She's defenseless. No one's there to help her. Every person there is there to completely just strip her of what power she has. And it was hopeless. It was a farce. We even see, the Hightowers convene with the Sea Snake's brother. They even just plan it out, how it's going to be. Alicent, to give her credit, she does say that she's uncomfortable even doing this, considering that we don't even have a body yet. But nobody cares about that and just wants to move on.
Don't they say something like, he might make it? Or something like that? Oh my god.
He may still live. That's the thing. But they want to go through with this anyway. But we all know it. They know it. We know it. It's a farce. The expected outcome is the Hightowers are going to rule in favor of the Sea Snake and Rhaenyra, and her whole, legitimacy would just be almost completely gone. Like, if she was knocked down here, she might have been knocked out for good. Mm-hmm. That's how bad this would be. Mm-hmm. And even, it gets even more vile here when the Sea Snake, without even saying it, in his, basically his argument, not so subtly, I am the true blood of Corlys Velaryon. I am the one who should inherit the throne. Not addressing it, but addressing it without even mentioning it, that, Rhaenyra's sons are bastards. And so, once that, and Rhaenyra tries to, correct them in real time, but she's, of course, not allowed to do that.
You just want to punch her.
And you even see, just a complete sense of hopelessness, right? Or maybe even the futility in her face of even mustering up an argument when she knows what the outcome is going to be no matter what.
Yeah.
But she tries. She even calls this whole thing a farce. I think the words that she gets out is that nearly 20 years ago, she was proclaimed the heir, I want to say, right there in this very room. When all of a sudden, she is interrupted. The doors open. And you think to yourself, no, it's not. It can't possibly be, right? The guy can't even move. We see that at the last moment possible, for the very last time, King Viserys, sorry, the names get so similar. King Viserys Targaryen gets up out of bed, really gets out of his deathbed, if we're being real with you, and drags himself all the way to court to sit himself on the throne to take up this matter. And this moment, again, even as I described it, it doesn't sound that amazing. I think really at the end of the day, it is just sold by all of the actors that were present. I mean, even just the sound of the doors opening, everyone turning around like, what the fuck is it now?
Yeah.
And then just like, as we see Rhaenyra's...
Him being presented as
King Viserys
for the first time in the show.
Protector
And
of the
the
realm.
King of the
time.
Andals, the protector of the realm, all of that, and him just like walking in, just like one of the best entrances I've ever seen ever. And it's even sold so much more by the complete shock in people's faces. I was laughing so hard to see like
Otto.
Otto first of all, but then the sea
Also, we
snake
didn't mention that Otto was sitting in the Iron Throne.
Yeah.
which ew.
It's just
And like he does, we've seen that before. Ned Stark sat on the Iron Throne.
even Daemon.
Tywin.
Lannister. But the difference is this guy is so happy about sitting on this damn throne.
Yeah,
basically,
and
right?
he announces like this whole thing being like,
Yeah,
it's it's sad that we have to do this thing, but it has to be done, and then he sits down on the throne, just elegantly, and then way.
I love all of the people's reactions. Otto's like,
fuck.
and then like we cut to the sea snake's brother, and he's like so like,
what the?
He has
looks
this look
back
on
at
his
Otto
face.
and Alicent back and forth. Like, what the fuck?
He's like, what the fuck? He's like, oh shit.
And
I love this so much. I love this so freaking much. But there's so many like moments, and just as he's like walking across, one of my favorite cutaways was to Rhaenys, who just feels so sad.
Yeah.
Just to see the condition that he's in. Like he has a half face mask, which we see later on, like why he has to wear that. Like he has one arm, the one arm which he has a cane just to walk himself across. I mean, he is decked out. He did put on like his formal attire, which that in and of itself must be painful to even have on, considering how thin he is.
I mean, the fact that he probably didn't have to do that, and later on in the dinner scene, like he was literally carried by 4 guys,
right.
His wheelchair?
His wheelchair, in the sense, he didn't have to like walk across the hall. Like someone could have carried him and be like, "I'm here, bitches," But no, he
did. Bran have the first wheelchair?
Maybe. Did Bran have the first wheelchair invented on the show?
Probably. I mean, they just...
That's what she was asking.
Yeah, probably. But like again, he didn't have to walk across the hall, to kind of like prove it. But he did, to just tell people like, "I'm here. I'm gonna fucking rule
Stand up for my daughter."
Yeah. And so...
Even the look he gives her, the look he gives Otto, like, I will sit the throne today. Fuck you. Get out of my way.
He backs away too, like, okay, fuck.
Your Grace?
Yeah. And, my favorite moment was him not accepting any help from anybody. And then we see his crown fall as he's going up the steps, and you see somebody grabbing for the crown. And he turns around, like, irritated, like a grumpy old man, being like, "I'm gonna fucking do it." And it's Daemon. I can't. It's so good. Too
helps
good.
him make the final steps to the throne, and then
places the crown on him. Oh my god. Let me tell you. I love this moment so much. First, the crown falling was an accident, and Daemon catching it was just completely improvised. That whole scene was improvised. Like, Daemon was always supposed to go and help him up the steps, but the crown falling was not there. The reason I love this scene is because I think my favorite character of this show is Daemon, because he's so, we talked earlier about Andor, how he's such like a morally gray character, but the morally gray character is Daemon, because the one thing, like, he does horrible shit, like so many bad things, but the one redeeming quality that he has is that he loves his family and he would do anything for them. And, you know, people always saw Daemon as the little brother who wants to take over the throne, the little brother who, you know, does all these crazy things because he wants the throne. But no, all he ever wanted was to be by his brother's side and for his brother to accept him. But that never happened. And you get that in this moment that, you know, finally he lets him help him in this last moment. And there was actually going to be a scene at the dinner table where Daemon does a whole speech about Viserys, but they cut that because they thought that this explained everything that needed to be said. And it's so good. I love it so much. And the music and oh my god.
A lot more is said without any dialogue, and I'm sure that scene was great. But like as you mentioned before, David, and you just now, Alexis, a lot of you do see throughout the episode that Daemon did always care very deeply for his brother, and that moment was the moment, obviously. But even later on in the dinner scene, where after all the toasts have been made and the kids are dancing. And we cut to Daemon just staring at Viserys with just like such deep sadness in his eyes because he knows his brother's in complete pain.
Yeah.
Just being here, isn't it?
Yeah. And there was something from the books, or a line that Viserys would always, or just a thing that Viserys would always say, that, you know, Rhaenyra was always, you know, like the love of his life, the thing that he cared about the most, but a brother is a brother. And I don't know, it's just such a good scene of, you know, they don't say anything at all, but just the looks that they give each other, the things that they do for each other.
Sorry, go ahead.
It's so good. And you see from this one scene how much these two brothers care for each other.
Yeah.
Yes, all of that is true, and all of that I felt it very deeply, and it was such an amazing moment. But then also what followed thereafter was amazing. Everything was amazing in this episode. But I love the idea that, you know, he dragged himself, you know, to this proceeding, but like, even earlier, there was a scene where he refused milk of the puppy. He's like, no, I don't want that clouding my mind. He even demanded supper, you know, to his hand, so he could be there. And he was lucid and very understanding. And even under all of that makeup, even though it literally is makeup, but like even after his very clear physical scarring, shall we say, to how his condition is, he's still there. He's still there. And the way he opens up the proceedings was amazing when he's like, you know, forgive my confusion, but I do not understand why petitions are being heard over a settled succession, which thank you for opening that up, because that's you know, that's actually the truth here. It's like, this has been settled. Why are we now relitigating this? And so, remind me, Lex, what happens after?
Well, we have Vaemon coming in. No, he basically says the only one here, which is a really interesting thing for him to say, and will bite him in the ass, I am positive, that the only person here who should be speaking about the succession to Driftmark is Rhaenys, the wife of the Lord of the Tides. She's the only one that would know, like, what he truly wants. And so, you know, she takes the stage, basically, and accepts Rhaenyra's offer to have the twins marry off to Viserys and Lucerys, which kind of is like a FU to Vaemon and Otto and Alicent, and you know, at that point they can't really argue this because somebody with Valerian blood is gonna be sitting on the Driftmark throne. So, but the reason I say I think, you know, this whole thing is gonna bite him in the ass is because once Viserys dies, then who's gonna be the one to voice Viserys' opinions? And by that ending...
I didn't think of that. That's actually... Damn. Because I honestly, though, I'll get to it when we get to it.
I am too angry to speak. Somebody else take over.
It was nice for Viserys to have Rhaenys take the stage and actually like let her voice her opinion, because not everyone does that. And then but yeah, basically she's on Rhaenyra's side and all that, and then that one guy, the brother, is all pissed off and just
calls Rhaenyra a whore and her kids bastards.
Yeah, no. He's getting pissed off, and then he turns to Rhaenyra, and it's like he's gonna say it, but not just yet. But then what happens? Daemon just goes, "Say it."
Say it.
It's just the look he gives him and the way he says it, like, you know, he wants to kill him. You know, he's probably gonna do it either way, whether he says it or not. And then he goes, they're bastards, and then Viserys stands up. He actually like stands up and pulls the knife out. Like he was ready to cut him too. That was great.
Was so cute. He said, "I'll have your tongue for this."
Well, that's after. I mean, don't forget. He not only said your children are bastards, and Rhaenyra is a whore.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's You don't do that.
I almost wish I would have seen Viserys actually try to like cut him up, but I like that Daemon stepped up and he's just like, he can keep his tongue. And then they tried taking
that. Yeah, it was so funny. Like that whole thing, like Viserys, it was really cute that Viserys was like, no, you don't get to do that here. But he's literally one move away from dying. Like, sir, please sit back down. And then Daemon stepping up. Did you guys see that meme of comparing him to Will Smith?
Oh my god.
What? Wait, what?
So it was when the brother guy, called Rhaenyra a whore, and then it's Daemon, and it's just a picture of Will Smith.
My name's wife out of your fucking mouth. I'm dead. It was funny. I want to skip over to a little scene with Mr. Aegon.
Okay.
I point out that this episode was, first of all, this whole season has been mainly directed by female directors, which is more than Game of Thrones ever did, because I believe 2 episodes out of the entire Game of Thrones show was directed by females. And you could really tell. We got a scene where they call Alicent, telling her that, there's something up with Aegon. She shows up to this room where this girl is, and the girl is scared. She's crying. And they didn't show what happened to her. They only insinuated what happened to her. And even by doing that, we understood what was going on. We understood this girl's fear. And they didn't have to show, you know, the bad things as the other show would have 100% done.
Yeah, I'm sure you can definitely tell the director of Blonde didn't direct this episode.
But that was a really interesting scene, you know. We have the lady behind Alicent, who later comes into play. I don't know if you guys saw.
Yeah.
I think it was in this episode, right? At the end. Interesting. And then we see her giving this girl the same tea that that Rhaenyra is given earlier in the season.
I'm sorry, do I smell hypocrisy?
Exactly. And then, you know, I will again give this to Alicent. I do believe her when she tells this girl, like, when she tries to comfort her. It is very reminiscent to Cersei, I might add, with the little nicknames that she gives her. You know, Cersei does the same thing to Sansa during the first season, so interesting. But I believe her when she tells her these things, you know, when she tries to comfort her. And I believe her when she goes and confronts Aegon about it and tells him, "You're no son of mine."
Mm-hmm.
But this is where I think, you know, David and I have these arguments all the time about Rhaenyra and Alicent. And like my thing about Alicent is like, although the show has not shown us a lot of these things, and that Rhaenyra, you know, has made mistakes, and, you know, she's not like perfect. The difference with Alicent is that all of the things that she's done, which, you know, you sympathize with her in knowing that, like, it's a culmination of the people around her that have set up for her to be this way, but she also chooses to do these things out of jealousy and out of hate. And we see here, you know, she tells this to Aegon, but still continues to get this idea that he will one day be king, and instills that on all of her kids too. So, I don't know. It's just interesting.
I would also venture to say, and I would think somehow it's very much implied, one person's kids turned out to be better human beings than the other.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, but I mean,
Okay.
I also, not that I like want to make excuses for her, because yeah, like ultimately she is the parent and she should, you know, teach them to be better. But it's also the same.
Also, I mean, she's not. It's hard because he basically is absent everywhere, but like Viserys is still alive and was alive for a lot of their.
He literally tells Rhaenyra, "My only child." Like you understand, you know, Aegon responds to Alicent telling her, like, "I do so much, but it's never enough," blah blah. But like he still does these things that are 100% not okay and atrocious.
Also, it's bullshit. Like, he does nothing.
Mm-hmm.
What does he do? He's just there.
Yeah.
He doesn't do anything. We never see him. We never see him try. We never see him care.
Yeah.
When Rhaenyra's kids were at the like training section, guess who's the only one there? Yeah, the guy's brother. And so like, what the heck is he doing all day?
Yeah.
Raping?
I mean, you're not wrong. But again, not trying to make excuses for
Somebody's doing the
Alicent,
raping.
But oh my god. like, you do see that Alicent cares for her kids, but it's this complicated relationship where these kids came from this relationship where there was there was nothing for her, and she was forced into this.
Yeah.
And you know, these are the results of that relationship, you know, and what her life has become. So I do see that, you know, she has resentment for her kids while loving them, and like, that's hard, you know.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know. Alicent is very interesting.
Yeah. That is very true, because if she were, I would say, a heartless monster, I don't think we would have received a truly genuine moment that she shared with Rhaenyra after what Viserys said. And if we can go ahead and get to that, because that whole sequence was, I think, my favorite stuff in the whole episode, and it was perfectly executed. And honestly, it's like, look, it's really sad to obviously hear an old man that knows he's not going to be alive much longer basically say that.
Yeah.
But he basically says,
get along.
he's you know, and he's been trying this basically the last 2 decades to get them all to get along the way that he feels they need to be. And honestly, it's like, look, that whole last speech he gave to his family, I feel, is the embodiment for why we care about Viserys and why we like him as a character. Is the thing he's only ever been concerned about was keeping his family together. It's the one thing he's always wanted. He's failed miserably at doing that. But he tries and tries and tries again. Even in his last day on the planet, he's just trying to, like, wrap everything up, and damn if he didn't give it his all. You know, just starting off his speech by saying, it seems that I might not walk among you much longer. He takes off his face mask to show the degree of decay. His illness has wreaked havoc, you know, his body, to the point where, like, part of his cheek is see-through, and his right eye has been removed. It's just aside from just being, like, ill, it's more than, it's just like, this is just really sad to see. But he does it to a point, as he says, like, I want you to see me as I am. And basically the essence of his speech is, I've been telling you guys to get along for years, but if you're not going to do it for the sake of the crown, then do it for this old man. Basically, do it for me. But again, I did a piss poor job of, like, trying to make you feel the things that Paddy Constantine made us feel when he delivered it. It was just genuinely powerful and sad. So much so that, and you saw the looks on both Rhaenyra and Alicent, that both of them were moved to make toasts to each other. Not because they feel they have to, but they genuinely felt so moved by it that for a second you see it. It was this close. There was the path forward. There it was. With both of them were best friends, and they remember that they used to really like each other, and they both love Viserys in their own ways. And they can both see that they've let the worst parts of themselves drift them apart. And this was the moment where it all turned around for the better. But that scene was just so beautiful, and even in the words that they exchanged with each other, were just so moving, and they themselves felt it, and you felt it. And it was there when Alicent said to Rhaenyra, "You'll make a fine queen." And we cut to Otto, like, the fuck did you just say?
He said, okay.
No.
Yeah.
And I love the moment Viserys, like, calls for music which was a great piece of music that they played over, which is very melancholic. You know, it's just like, you know, you see them having a good dinner for a change. All the while, Viserys is trying not to... Well, first of all, I think genuinely he's like... Well, let me ask you guys. What do you think was going through his mind? Because he genuinely... I mean, obviously he was in pain, but before the pain overcame and he had to be, like, escorted out of the room, he just looked sad.
I think he realized how late he was to be doing this. Because in this moment, he's watching Viserys and Helena dance, which they were supposed to get married. This could have all been fixed if he would have stood his ground and, you know, had done what people had advised him to do, but he didn't. And it was... Like, I think he was happy to see his family get along for the first time, probably ever. But also sad because he waited till the last minute to do this and to fix this. But yeah, this whole scene with Viserys is so good. And you have, you know, the thing with Rhaenyra and Alicent and how... they have this connection and this bond, you know, that only they know because, you know, they were part of this friendship and only they were. But they also let their anger towards each other fester into their kids, which is ultimately their own downfall. Because these kids don't understand their relationship. They weren't there. All they know is what they've been taught. And we see the result of that here.
Yeah. No, I mean, just everything you guys said. I 100% agree. Their speeches were great. Also, there was that one joke where Alicent did the prayer and she prayed for that that one guy. And Damon's face is just like, the fuck? Are you serious? Come on. You can burn in hell. But no, yeah, just everything with Rhaenyra and Alicent was absolutely great, especially because there was just a slight little hope that everything could have been fixed. And when Viserys left, and then afterwards everything goes to shit. Rhaenyra says that she's got to leave, but Alicent was just like, no, you should stay. And I really wish she...
And she meant it, yeah. Even, before that, right at the moment where everything went to shit, we have this speech that Aemon says to the Strong Boys. Amazing. All of the kids.
Let's be real here, those boys... They exposed themselves. They exposed themselves as being children of Harwins because Harwin was that brute. Boys, you should know at this point. If you know what you are, you gotta compose yourselves a lot better than that. You should have taken the compliment and just kept your mouth shut and move on.
Yeah,
instead of that whole outburst. Every single
kid at that table was ready to just tear each other's heads off.
It seemed weird to me. I don't know what was the implication besides just being a dick. Where Aegon was questioning Lucerys. It is Lucerys, right? Or is it Jacaerys? The older
Lucerys.
one. It was like you do know where to put your cock.
Jacaerys, sorry.
He was asking you do know where to put your cock in, right? What was... Well, why?
That's first of all, Aegon's a dick. But that was always their relationship. Aegon might be... Well, no, because Helena, isn't really into all of the family drama. But Aegon, they got along with each other, with Rhaenyra's kids. Aemon is the one that has a lot of issues because they would always make fun of him, hence the pig. But Aegon's just a dick. He's just a trash person.
Hmm.
Yes, and Aemond, the second one, he grew up a lot in those 6 years. He looks even, I don't know, there's a look to, yes, there, you said
scary. But it's so good. And I keep going back to Alicent and defending her, but I'm really trying not to. But after, you know, they fight and everything, you see Alicent going over to Aemon and being like, why did you do this?
Mhm.
Like, what was the point of all this? And, like, her being, like, actually angry that he would do something like this. But also, she is the cause of this.
Yes, and yes, and yes, and yes, and yes. Yep. Anyway, all that wraps up. We then cut to... I can't even say it. I know.
We head over to Viserys' chambers and literally his last moments. And you see Alicent attending to him. And he confuses her for Rhaenyra to finish the conversation that they were having earlier, where Rhaenyra goes to him to vent and to ask for help and to basically seek validation in, you know, asking him, like, did you really mean to make me the heir? Do you still mean it? And this scene is, like, tragic for a lot of reasons. Because he thinks that he's talking to Rhaenyra and saying basically, like, yes, you are the heir to the Iron Throne, the true heir. The prophecy is real. But Rhaenyra never finds this out. She loses her dad without ever knowing if, you know, he truly meant what he had done. And, like, that sucks. Because the only one that does know is Alicent. And she decides to read whatever it is that she's thinking into it. And the biggest flaw of the Targaryens is that they all name each other the same thing. And she decides that Aegon the Conqueror's prophecy is, and because he starts, like, doing all these, like, yes, Aegon the prophecy, like, barely even saying a sentence, and she thinks that Aegon, their son, is the heir to the throne.
I would also say that perhaps a grave mistake of the Targaryens was to be extremely exclusive with who was aware of the legend of, or the Song of Fire and Ice. They should have told more people, at least in their family.
Yeah.
That way they could prepare themselves for this.
Yeah.
And this would have avoided this whole tragedy. Yeah. I'm not looking forward to the next episode. Only because I know it's. That's why it's like I don't like feeling nervous because we've seen the preview and it seems like a whole bunch of death.
It's literally called the Green Council.
Oh.
Or maybe not that, but something about the greens. So interesting.
It's supposed to make me feel better, Alexis?
Yeah, sorry. I wanted to read to you guys. I think I already told David, but the line in the book that literally gives me chills every time that I see it or read it, of them saying how Viserys died, or announcing when Viserys died. That goes, Viserys of House Targaryen closed his eyes and went to sleep. He never woke. He was 52, and he reigned over most of Westeros for 26 years. Then the storm broke, and the dragons danced.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see what's next.
I wonder, do you feel that this next episode is going to be like all like climax and then episode 10 is all falling action? Or do you think that it's part 1?
I think it's part 1
Yeah.
of the last 2.
Can we get them at the same time?
I know,
I can wait that long.
I know.
Because you know they're gonna end in a cliffhanger of like something to happen. Someone's gonna die in the next episode. I think.
I think a whole bunch of someones might die. Like, we don't even know, like, who. I think Alexis knows. I think they're, honestly, I feel like she probably knows who is going to get it coming. Yeah.
I'm nervous is all I have to say. Also, I did send you guys, just because this is a very heavy Viserys episode, the Patty Considine's post on Instagram.
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
that was beautiful.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
No, it was. For one thing, he loved the love he was getting from the fans and everything. But also,
Sure, yeah.
I love that bit where he pointed out like his motivation towards the character, and it was that, you know, he was basically punishing himself this whole time for the death of his wife and all that. Like he kept going because he felt like this is what he deserved.
For putting her through that.
No, I feel like I'm just happy that he is getting the love that we're throwing at him. And it's one of these instances, like, I'm not sure if it's occurred to you guys, but like, this is one of the rare instances where we like crazy love something and everybody else loves it the same way we do. Because that hardly ever happens.
Yeah.
But of
Usually the
course
stuff that we love is like burned to the ground. You know? I mean, for real. And I love the reaction. Like, I'll even quote here. On Twitter, it was not Jeremy, excuse me. John, it's late, guys. Johnny Sobsack said, Petty Constantine has been a highlight of House of the Dragon.
Considine,
Yeah.
guys. You keep saying
It's Constantine. It's Constantine.
Considine.
I heard
Constantine.
I heard Considine. I don't know.
Petty Constantine has been a highlight of House of the Dragon, but he delivered the performance of a lifetime in tonight's masterpiece. The way he breathes life and death into Viserys is earth-shaking, eliciting tears and cheers within a single moment, even without saying a word.
So good. Snaps and claps to
Yep.
him.
Snaps and claps and maybe some Emmys as well. The campaign starts today. We're going to march all the way to wherever they're going to have the Emmys. Well, you can have protests outside. Demonstrations set up. But first we have to win Michelle Yeoh her Oscar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we'll move on to... Which might be tougher than we thought. So anyway, that's our show this week. Stay tuned, of course, next time for more. Hopefully next week we can talk more about The Midnight Club by Mike Flanagan, as well as the latest with Andor and House of the Dragon, and whatever else we may see. Thank you all. Of course, our podcasts are available to stream anywhere you go to podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere else, every single Sunday. We will see you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.